we have semantics on how to be able to connect in that way, that it has to be this kind of one way, instead of it being like, oh, at the end of the day, you still connect with a higher being. You still see yourself as a smaller person, a very much of an insignificant person. You're so humble in yourself, to a higher power. And it doesn't matter if it has to be through Islam, through Christianity, through Hinduism. You still submit yourself to a higher power, and that should be more than good enough. And in a sense, that's how I kind of like view it. But a lot of people who are very, very, if I would say maybe extreme, radical, or very narcissistic in their faith. And I'm not saying this as an insult. I'm just saying it because it's a very one tunnel vision way of viewing your faith, because it's very important to you. You think that you're the right one. Your one is the right one. You know what I mean? So, and that's how maybe categorize them. Therefore, because your one is the right one, that means that everyone else's is wrong.
What? All I know is life is raggedy.
Hello guys, welcome to the Reforming Pessimist podcast. It's your girly Abanga, and I am back with another banger. Another banger. Hey. I've actually not done that intro in a while, so I need to start exploiting my name, guys. I need to. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're all being good. Recording very late in the evening for some reason, but hey ho. Here we go. I'm really excited to have this conversation on this podcast. It's like going to be a very interesting one. Maybe might shake some tables. Whenever, I don't know how it's going to flow, because with me, I just go with the gaff. Like, yeah, and let my brain kind of like do its thing. So we'll see how it all turns out anyway. But I'm really excited. I'm literally going to be talking about fate, conflict of fate, my relationship with Christianity, and all of that stuff. It's an interesting journey, and I think there's maybe an interesting topic as well to talk about, because I don't know, maybe people are talking about it and I've not encountered it, but my experience when it comes to spirituality and faith, and in particular Christianity, it can be a very polarizing conversation. A lot of people get offended, a lot of people get slighted, a lot of people think that you're being disrespectful of the religion and all of that stuff. And I kind of wanted to have a very nuanced, very open conversation about faith, because I believe the faith is like really important to healing and your healing journey. In a sense, I think that faith is, in general, is actually a really good thing for humanity. It's a really good thing for people and our survival and our existence in this world, because sometimes like it's very hard to understand why we're here. Like, if you really want to go into like why we're here, what we're doing on this planet, what we're doing on this earth, what's our purpose, what's the point of our existence, why do we go through what we go through. There's all these existential questions and queries as to why we exist as sentient beings. And I'm very much of also like, I like science, so I like listening to scientists and scientific experts to kind of like get their point of view of like terms of research and stuff like that, where they talk about things like Big Bang and stuff like that. And also I'm very much appreciative of how large the world is, and how very much I'm a very tiny, minuscule person in the world. And therefore I also like to respect and be curious about other people's religion, their faith, their spirituality across the world, across the globe anyway, and how that comes to be. And I think that it just informs as to why, like, as a species, like as a human race, across the board, we all over the world always find ways to have spirituality, to be able to exist, to be able to be here. Because otherwise, it's like you then ask yourself the question: what's the point? What's the point of being here? What's the point of being on this earth? You know what I mean? What am I doing here? And there's that whole conversation of life and death as well. Like, okay, so I'm born into this world, and then when I die, like, what happens to me? Where do I go? And stuff like that. So it's faith, spirituality, and religion, which is also a whole another topic in itself, because it exists in terms of a difference, because religion is in an institution, the institutions, the organizations. So that's a different thing as well. It becomes a very, very interesting conversation for a lot of people across the globe. Like there's like billions of people who are Christians in its different sects and denominations. There's billions of people who are Muslim in these different sects and denominations. There's amazing, like literally, there's millions of the people who are Hindu or who practice Buddhism, like who some atheists out there because they're like, we don't believe in anything. There's just multitudes of ways to kind of find meaning to your existence and how you are on this earth and why you exist and I'm meant to exist here. So I always like to like respect people in their choices and decisions when it comes to faith and spirituality in particular, because I'm like, you need what you need to be able to cope and exist and live this life. And whatever you may find that helps you, either it's through yoga, through Hinduism, through whatever, through Christianity, and it's helping you live this life, manage this life, cope, exist in this life. I am wishing you the best and all the love in the world. But I wanted to also like have an honest conversation about my own spirituality, my own faith, which is more for like a critical perspective and also very nuanced conversation regarding it. So I'm really excited to talk about it. We'll see how that goes. We see how it turns out at the end of the episode. But as usual, I always do a check-in. So let's do a check-in first and then let's dive right into it. Is it raggedy? Come on, Javs. Let's launch the voice.
Raggedy. So raggedy.
How am I doing? I'm doing amazing, guys. I'm doing really, really well. I'm doing so good. Look at my eyes. Look at my eyeshadow. Like I'm glittering, like glittering. It means that like I'm in sparkly, sparkly. In a really great place in my healing journey, guys. Like, I'm in a really, really great place in my healing journey. I feel like I'm building so much confidence in myself and in my healing that is just so beautiful to see. I wake up every day and I'm just like so happy to be alive, happy to be existing, just like at peace. I feel so at peace. I've never felt this much peace my entire life. I've had sparks of peace through my life, some little sparks of peace here and there, but I am really, really at peace. And, I am beginning to soak in life and soak in the joys of life and the beauties of life, even though it comes with its challenges and its difficulties and everything, but I'm beginning to soak in that. And that is like so special and so like heartwarming to me. It just makes me so appreciative of how far I've come, like how well I'm doing. I've got some episodes in stock actually of when I was not doing really well, when I was really deep in depression, and I'm going to drop them like through the years because I feel like it would be really great to kind of give contrasts of like, when you're really in a dark place and when you're really in a good place. But yeah, I'm really doing well, guys. Like I'm just so happy. I'm just so grateful. I'm just so thankful. Like every day, like I talk about this every check-in. I talk about like how sometimes it can get overwhelming. It's not as overwhelming anymore actually, but I'm just like, wow, like this is me, this is my life. Also, that is coming down. That is coming down. And it's the New Year's as well. So I'm really excited. I'm looking forward to the year. I don't know what challenges and what new blessings are gonna come my way, but I'm looking forward to them all. I'm looking forward to like, facing them and like, being able to receive them or work on them or be able to deal with them, whichever way it throws at me. So overall, your girl is doing good and I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to be here. I hope in your own individual journeys that you are where I am. And if you're not, I am wishing you the best. I am praying for you. I'm here to cheer you on. I'm here to tell you that, girl, you got this. Bro, you got this. It's a tough journey, but you can do this and you can face yourself. And it is tough, but you find the other side. I'm really grateful to be seeing the other side because it's so beautiful. It's so wonderful to be here. So I wish you guys all the best, and I really hope that you guys find your way to where I am now, where like you're doing so much better and your mental health is like, at its peak form, because it's just the thing that all of us are hoping for. And I really hope that all of you get there. So yeah, anyway, end of check-in. Let's get into the episode. Okay, so in spirituality, I wanted to focus on faith and spirituality in particular. I mean, my religion is Christianity, and I really wanted to talk about that as well because I've had a lot of conflicted conversations around that with people. I'm a very sociological person. There's debates, guys. There's always debates. Some people like they don't really was it called like and also I've been in the Christian community, I've been in the Christian world, so when you are a certain type of person, being Christian can come with some critique, you know what I mean? There's this saying that a lot of Christians like to say, where they say, come as you are when you're coming into the faith, when you're coming into religion and stuff like that. But as a group, as an entity, I also find that we are the most critical, the most vicious, and the most judgmental that you ever encounter. And I think that it just is, I don't think it's this fate per se, or is the spirituality per se, or the religion per se. Not, I'm not talking about the organization in particular. I think it's just human behavior and human nature. I think that a lot of us are very much acting in our humanness. But I think that when we wear the badge of fate as our identity, we disguise who we are in terms of our humanity, in terms of our behavior, either bad or good, and then put that under the guise of, and put the plaster of the fate as the forefront of it, to be able to present it as, this is what the fate is meant to be like, this is what the fate is meant to look like, this is what the spirituality of the religion is meant to look like. Instead of it being like, oh, how can this spirituality and this fate that I'm adopting embodies who I am as a person, and also fits within myself as not authentically who I am. I notice a lot in the Christian faith, when I was really like in organized religion and I was in churches and stuff like that, I noticed how performative that we can be as groups of people, how performative that we show ourselves to be to the church, to the public. And it's not like everybody is performative, but majority of the time you see a lot of performance, because, you know, a lot of us are trying to portray a certain image, either out of fear of judgment, fear of ridicule, fear of bashing, or whatever. And the beauty about being part of a religious organization is the community that you gain from that. And I think that with being part of the community and wanting belonging means that a lot of people augment themselves. There's a lot of change behavior to be able to participate in this, like, you know, group or community and stuff like that. So there's a lot of, for me, in my observation of being part of my faith, there's a lot of like ebb and flow, and a lot of like, you know, critiques that I've come to have for the faith that I participate in. And I talk about this overall because I'm like very much of observing my experience within the faith. But I also wanted to talk about my journey into Christianity, how I ended up becoming a Christian, and, you know, why I still wear the Christian badge of honor. And I always throw shade in some of my episodes, if you hear, where I'm like, oh, people did tell me that I'm not Christian like that. And yeah, the shades are because I've heard it from a few people where they're like, oh, actually, you don't practice this faith properly because you don't either abide by these rules or that rules, which is very fascinating to me, because again, there's a lot of hypocrisy where we pick and choose what rules we want to abide by when it comes to the faith. But when people are not abiding by the rules that we follow, we then are very judgmental or very critical of those group of people, instead of sometimes focusing on our own journey and focusing on, like, you know, the path that we've taken and how our faith is becoming a blessing or a comfort or a help to the journey and our journey in life. So I throw shade because people tell me I'm not Christian like that, and I'm like, I'm the Christian, I'm Christian, and take that, bitch, take that. The other thing as well is that when it comes to Christianity as well, like, there's a lot of conflicting feelings that I have about it. Like, you know, I'm a Black person. I was born in Ghana, and Ghana has a very preserved history on the slave trade, and you learn a lot about how Christianity was really used and weaponized in terms of, like, you know, enslaving a lot of Black people, using as a way to colonize a lot of, like, Africans and stuff like that. So as a religion, I can see how, like, participating in this faith has been wielded and used as a form of oppression, and also as a form basically indoctrinating a group of people to see themselves as worthless, to see themselves as beneath another group of people. So you always have a conflicting feeling when it comes to, like, Christianity and the faith I practice in a relationship. And also there is this other side of it where, like, there's also my ancestral faiths, like, you know, my ancestral religions before colonialism, before, like, you know, the invasion of Western Europeans, that, or even the invasion of, like, the Middle Easterns, because, like, before Christianity got into Ghana or a lot of the African countries, Islam was already there. Islam arrived way before Christianity came. So when these religions came into, there was this kind of demonization and a ridicule of African faith, African religion. And I really appreciated my social studies teachers in Ghana in particular, because I grew up partly in Ghana before I moved to England. And, you know, they used to teach us about the different types of religion. They used to talk about our, like, traditional religion and stuff like that. And there was a moment I had a conversation with a friend of mine who, like, you know, I had so much respect for. And I was talking about, like, you know, how I'm very curious about our African religion and our African faith and how it's like and stuff like that. And they were telling me about, oh my God, Lydia, why are you choosing the demon's world? Why are you choosing the evil side? And it kind of really taught me an idea of how branding, we use the word branding now, but how stereotyping and branding of something can really inform us as a group of people, and also how it can inform us to reject our our history, our ancestry, the things that basically brought us to be. There's this song that this song in Ghana, there's this hymn that we used to sing in the church where we used to say that, oh, our forefathers, they used to worship, I don't know, bosom in tree. I don't know if I'm going to translate that properly. If you're an Ashanti, please correct me. But they're like, oh, they worship like, what was it called, things, and like evil things and all of that stuff. Some people call it juju or whatever, but we the modern people, we're going to worship God because God is the one and only, which is very much integral to Christian faith, because Christian faith is all about like there's one way, there's one path. It's through Jesus, it's through God, and that's it. There's no other thing. Anything else is like false, anything else is like wrong, anything else is evil, anything else is backwards, anything else is all of that stuff. And even though I practice the Christian faith, I do not think of things like that way. Also, when my friend was having that rebuttal to me, that's the mindset that she was coming from. But for me, I was thinking of, okay, so when you say that, then are you saying that like all my ancestors were evil, like all my ancestors were wrong, all my ancestors didn't know better? And the reason why I said it, I thought of it that way as well, is because when I think about ancestry, so before Christianity was brought through colonialism, before it was even brought into Europe, when like it was transitioning from the Middle East through Greece into Europe as well, before all of that, people only found way to appreciate the existence in the world through things, and an author that really made that look beautiful and that wrote it really perfectly well for me was Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. You will realize that I'm obsessed with that lady. And there was this part of her book in Purple Hibiscus where she was describing one of the protagonists, the male protagonist in the book, her father being, what's it called, a traditional African practitioner, and he basically like had his own, like, what did they even call it, a shrine. They had their own shrine where they basically practiced their religion and or their faith. And for them, they saw God, or they felt God through, the rivers, or they felt God through, the land or the sun, or, through items, because like these things were what was sustaining them. And because these things were what was sustaining them, therefore they saw God through that way. And it made me think about how we see God, the relationship we have with God, and how we connect, or in whatever way connect with God or higher power or whatever, and how we have semantics on how to be able to connect in that way, that it has to be this kind of one way, instead of it being like, oh, at the end of the day, you still connect with a higher being. You still see yourself as a smaller person, a very much of an insignificant person. You're so humbling yourself to a higher power. And it doesn't matter if it has to be through Islam, through Christianity, through Hinduism. You still submit yourself to a higher power, and that should be more than good enough. And in a sense, that's how I kind of like view it. But a lot of people who are very, very, if I would say maybe extreme, radical, or very narcissistic in their faith. And I'm not saying this as an insult. I'm just saying it because it's like it's a very one tunnel vision way of viewing your faith, because it's very important to you. And you think that you're the right one. Your one is the right one. You know what I mean? So, and that's how maybe categorize them. Therefore, because your one is the right one, that means that everyone else's is wrong. And in some cases, there's this condescendingness of being like, oh, you're dumb and you don't know any better. And I've felt that a lot. I've also got that material as well. You're dumb and you don't know any better because, you're either open to other people's faith or open to other people's religion and stuff like that. And as a group of people, as we exist in this world, we are also different and also unique in our own ways. That is nice to just respect how other people have made their choices or their decisions. And that's the beauty about when it comes to Christianity. That's one thing I love about free will, because the point of free will is the choice to be able to participate in the faith the way that you want to participate in it. And when you encounter God, or when you face God, it's between you and God to deal with it. But in some cases, a lot of us make the decision to police, basically determine what is the right way and what is the right path. And for me, that is my conflict, and that is my disagreement when it comes to whatever religion and whatever faith that you are practicing. So, and also the reason why I ended up this way, so a little bit of context and history as well, is that I grew up in a very multi-religious family. So my grandparents on my paternal side were Muslim, and my grandmother was Christian. I grew up in a part of in a family where like it didn't matter what religion that you were in, we were all kind of like a mix of religion. I've had aunties who were Christian their whole life, got married to a Muslim man and then converted into Islam. So the type of religion that you belong to is not really beholden to you. And I also realize that when it comes to your faith and your religion, a lot of us, and I mean a lot of us, do not determine what fate we end up in. I think that there's barely a lot of conversion later on in life for a lot of people moving religions, because I think that it's what you're born into. The community you're born into, you end up basically being that. If you're born into Christianity, you end up being Christian in later in life. If you're born into Islam, you end up becoming Islam in life. If you're born into Hindu or whatever, you end up practicing Hinduism or whatever faith. It's just what you're born into. And I think that lack of choice already, because you're born into your faith or your religion, means that we shouldn't be so judgmental on people in terms of what kind of faith or what kind of religion that they are practicing, and so much and so forth. And so because of that, my side of the family were very Christian, so we just practiced the Christian faith. We started with the denomination of Assemblies of God, which then falls under the Pentecostal, because the Pentecostal church basically came from that. So we then kind of followed into Pentecostal churches. And for me in particular, when it comes to healing and faith and all of that stuff, I grew up not really strong in my Christianity per se. Like, we went to church here and there, but it wasn't like a big thing, you know what I mean? Like, Sundays were mostly like looking after our elders. Like, it wasn't like going to church or worshiping God. One of my cousins really used to try to make us like do it, but like we needed to look after the adults. Like, there was no time to be out here. You know what I mean? Like, worshiping God and stuff like that. And then, you get older. And I think that when I was in particularly when I was in junior high school, like when I was like 12, 13, 11, 12, 13, I started to really get into my faith, because life had gotten really hard for me, like really, really hard. And toughness and in that hardship, some comfort and some escape that I got to be able to exist in that space was my Christianity and faith. And so like being part of that community where like we did church services either at school or being part of like a school church community or a faith-based community was like really, really important to me. And I even remember like we were running for prefectships, and I wasn't like one of the most like academically intelligent person. Like when it comes to prefectships, this was all in Ghana before I moved to the UK anyway. Prefectships in Ghana in particular, when you're like in the high schools, like you have to be the most like academically exceptional student to be able to get a school prefect, and I was not academically exceptional. I was like, yeah, a girl was, you know what I mean? And so, I ended up running for the religious school prefect, and I won. I did a preaching thing. As you can see, I'm talking. A talker, public speaker, so it is inevitable. And I won on that because I really took my faith. I was very, very like in the faith. I was like very radical in the faith at that time. I was very young as well. I was very, very young. And then I then ended up doing the transition into the UK, and then I lost that faith because life again got tougher. And I think that that's the ebb and flow that you have when it comes to faith, spirituality, is that there can be a conflict when you're healing. When you're being somebody who's being traumatized and traumatized and traumatized and traumatized. Some people, they veer to one side where they become so indoctrinated in the faith, and the faith become their coping mechanism. You're coping with your faith. Your faith is what's kind of giving you a sense of relief, a sense of like comfort, a sense of something to be able to just keep going and doing this life to maybe you can get to yourself to the end. And then some of us, we lose that faith because you start to really become distrusting of your environment, your world. And it's very unique to everybody's individual experience, where like, I will have moments where like my faith I'll be like, oh, I'm still very faithful. But then there will be other times where like I had completely lost my faith because like things was just getting so tough and harsh for me. I just couldn't understand why God will put me through this. Why will God make my life so hard? Why will God make my life so difficult? Why is everything just crashing down on me? Why do I feel like I am basically crumbling and crumbling and crumbling? And then when you get to the extreme end, in particular when you're really, really struggling with your mental health, and like you're ideating now, you're thinking, oh, I need to unalive myself, I need to like not not be here. I don't want to be here anymore. It's like sometimes it's like a complete disappearance of faith off in the world. You're completely lost because you're so ill in your mental illness, like you're just completely gone. You know what I mean? And I can understand a lot of people who come to a place where they have a lot of distrust in spirituality, a lot of distrust in religion or organized religion, because they truly believe that organized or religion whatsoever, whichever way that you practice it, has not served them well because they were told stories. And particularly with Christianity has, and I have come to realize that Christianity can have a very much of a fairy tale storytelling when it comes to either how preachers or head of churches try to basically spread the word to their congregation. I've been to a lot of churches and I know that being sold a dream for sure. I'm being sold, it's Disney, but a church version of Disney, you know what I mean? And so you see a lot of people, they go to church, and I had that. So when you go to church, Sunday, you're buzzing, you're feeling the pastor's preached it, and I would call it motivational speaking type of church. Pastor speaking, and you're like, yes, my Lord, everything is gonna. And then you go home and you go back to the reality in your world. You go back to your mental health. You go back to your own hell. You go back to your problems and your issues. And you're waiting for that next fix on Sunday to get that motivational rise again from your pastor. So that you can be like, again. So it can get people to be very distrusting because it's like, my pastor is telling me this, my pastor is telling me, okay, if I act right, if I'm good, if I do this, if I do that, like all the list of things that I need to do, if I pay my tithe, if I do all of these things, my life is going to get better, things are going to change, I'm going to find healing, I'm going to be happy, la di da da. But then none of that is tangibly happening in your life. And I'm speaking specifically to healing and trauma. None of that is happening in your life because actually what needs to be done is for you to face yourself, confront yourself, and deal with your bullshit. So you're putting plasters, using your faith to put plasters on, and it's not helping. In a sense, it's not helping at all. And I'm very, very biased because this is again my opinion. So you start to be really angry at your faith. You start to be really pissed. You get bitter. You get really bitter. I used to be like, when I meet God, I need to have a conversation with him because, sir, I do not understand. I do not understand. What is this? Like, what is this raggediness that you set me out for? Like, what is this BS that you set me up for? And then I'll have people who I'm friends with who are also in the faith. And, it's like they sell this narrative that, oh my God, everything is fixed for me. Everything is perfect for me. God is really coming through for me. Like, oh my God, God has never failed me. God has never let me down. And now in hindsight and in growth, in observation and in realization that like those people are coping with the religion. That's my opinion. They're coping with the religion, they're coping with the faith, and therefore they are not very honest and truthful about their faith journey. They're not very honest about the challenges that they're facing, or like their own also ebb and flow of the dips in their faith as well. They're not very honest about that. It may seem like they are, but they're not. And in particular, if you're somebody who's like going through trauma and you're going through healing, and you're in a faith and you're struggling with that, I want you to really see, and I'm like, legit, anybody who's selling you the idea or the dream that it's always perfect for them is goddamn lying. Like, they're lying to you. They are literally lying to you. It's never that perfect because life is not perfect. Life is fucking hard. Like, life is brutal, and it doesn't choose favorites, it doesn't choose people. It is brutal to everybody across the board. That's one thing that we know for sure, that if anything is fair on everybody else on this earth, that is life is literally fair to everybody. It gives it to everybody. You're gonna get it. It doesn't matter who you are. You is gonna get it. It doesn't matter if you're really rich, if you're really poor, if you're the most intelligent, if you're the least intelligent, most talented, the least talented. And that's what we see all of these stories of people across the world who've all had challenging times and problems and issues in this world. So when some people in the faith, and particularly when I encounter a lot of people in Christianity, they will sell this uber optimistic point of view, because I'm a very much of a pessimistic person, so I live very negatively, and oh my God, wow, like it's so amazing. It made me question them more and become a little bit more distrusting of them, because I'm like, I don't really believe you. I don't really believe that it's all nice and all great. And it will always be so nice for us to always be transparent and have those conversations with us and actually be honest and be open about it. And later on down the line, I started to encounter preachers who are very much like on that wavelength, who's put similarly, like who came on the pulpit and they weren't sugarcoating things, were like, it's shit, like it's bad, but you know what I mean, we just need to trust in the Lord and be good in that. And I was really grateful for that, those preachers, because they were kind of being a little bit more honest. You go, when I was doing sociology in college before I did it for my degree, there was a bit about, religion that we learned, where they were talking about, like, religion in particular has become a thing of where people shop for, where they they align to you when it comes to their fate. And in some cases, in particular, who you are and your values and what you align to, sometimes you have to go to a lot of churches, you have to go to a lot of preachers to be able to hear what aligns with you as a person, hear what preachers are basically speaking to who you are authentically as a person, so that at the end of the day, like, when you're hearing from these people, it's helping you get better. Because I truly believe that the point of us having faith, the point of us having, like, religion, the point of us being spiritual as human beings, where a lot of us actually are spiritual as human beings overall, is because it helps us, it helps with our existence, it helps with our psyche. It's a beneficial thing for us when it comes to ourselves psychologically. So, whilst I was going through my journey with my faith and distrust and just the questioning and the prodding and stuff like that, and just encountering people who I'm realizing, oh, I actually don't appreciate your point of view when it comes to faith. I don't like the way that you're very demeaning and belittling of other religion. You're very, like, very narcissistic in your faith, and it's just not. I feel like, yes, it's good to be loyal to your faith, but it's also good to love your neighbor, as Jesus said in the New Testament, as yourself. You know what I mean? And when Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself, he didn't say, oh, with these stipulations that they need to fit these whatever. And even with the whole throwing of stones things, when they were about to stone the guy, guys, I'm not really good with my Bible quotes. Sorry. If you guys expect me to be like one of those, I'm not hardcore. Yeah, yeah. Like, that's why they say I'm not. That's, you now get why they say I'm not a real Christian. You know, get why I'm not a real Christian. Um, where was I? But like when they were chucking a stone at that man who was committed this adultery over whatever sin, and it was like, whomever who's not committed the sin threw the first stone, and all this. I really love those kind of those chapters and those scriptures, because it kind of really speaks to human pattern and human behavior, and how we're so quick to judge but not always check ourselves and reflect on ourselves and see our own bad behaviors, and see how we're no better, we're not doing any better either. So I now change environment through my healing, and I really start to be embedded in my faith more. And I'm grateful for things like the Bible app, for instance, where they will give you scriptures every day, and they'll give you a prayer prompt every day. And it was a good way to kind of meditate. That was like kind of my form of meditation, and reflect, pray. And I was doing that for a very, very long time. And that was one of the catalysts to me pivoting in my healing, because for the first time ever, I was really speaking to the things that I wanted, the things that I desired, the things that I was looking for. Even though, like, I was still in my trauma, I was still in a very difficult place. I wasn't sure. One thing that I was really so grateful for about myself through my whole journey, in terms of like dealing with all the challenges I've gone through from my childhood to adulthood, one thing I realized was that there's this thing that faith leaders always say, that, like, you only need a mustard seed of faith. Mustard seed apparently really tiny. And I used to love the way they say, a mustard seed of faith. I used to love it when they say that, because I realized that my faith was definitely a mustard seed, probably half of that mustard seed, because it was always non-existent, because I truly believe that God hated me. Like, God didn't love me. I wasn't one of God's chosen ones, because I would see other people, and it wasn't out of jealousy per se, but I would see other people's life and what they have. And I'm like, God, why would you make it so good for somebody, you make it so hard for others? I just couldn't understand it, right? It just baffled me per se. There is a lack of life. If in an alternate universe, if we could, like, have you guys watched Soul? Love that movie. It is on Disney. Love it, love it, love it. Amazing. Like, I cried at the end. I cried so much at the end, because just the way that they wrote this, the story is just so beautiful. When he found out the meaning of life and what life really truly meant for him. But with soul, like the what was it called? Oh, what's the name? The actual soul that didn't want to go because it was so afraid. They've been staying for a long time. They didn't want to go because they were like, life is too hard. I wish that we were like that as human beings, where we could choose. Yeah. So actually, as I'm analyzing the world from up there, I want these group of people as my parents. I want this group of community as the big place I want to live. You don't get to choose who you're born to. You don't get to choose, what world you're born into, what part of the world you're born into. Are you born into a wealthy Western country or a poor, developing country? Like, are you born into war? Are you born into an abusive household, a domestically abusive household? Are you born into a warm, loving family? Are you born into a very thriving, wealthy family? You know what I mean? You don't choose what you're born into. Is the lack of birth, and so you go where you're born to, and for some reason you have to then figure out how you're going to do life wherever wherever you get. And so the lack of choice in where we end up that determine the life that we end up having, right? And also, as you progress through life, some of the lucks that you get, anyway, I feel like some amazing lucky moments happened in my life through the most challenging, most difficult periods of my life. And I only got to really see amazing lucky moments in my life when I healed, when I really started to heal. Because for the longest time, I couldn't. The reason why I was so angry at God and I was like, why me? Why is it so hard? Why is it so difficult? Is because I just couldn't come off my pessimism and see the goodness and see the beauty and practice gratitude for the things that were going right for me, even in chaos, even in turmoil. I couldn't see all of those things. And it's in coming out and being healed, I am now seeing it. And it's now being not so pessimistic that I'm now also maybe a little bit seeing some Christians' optimism and how they're highly do optimistic. You know what I mean? So yes to my shade, but also I get why they're so optimistic, because there is a point that you get to where you really start to have gratitude for the life that you have because of the positions that you were in and how certain things could have gone a certain way, but it went some way. And then that way was the biggest blessing, the biggest catalyst to pivoting you to a certain stage of your life that then change, that a ripple effect of things. And it was through my healing that I really started to see some moments where I thought was challenging and was painful and was punitive as a blessing, as a goddamn blessing. Some relationships that didn't seem right or ended or didn't seem good, but I see the benefit, the beauty of what that person that was in my life served me, how that person really encouragement, they brought growth, they brought knowledge to me in terms of the encounter that I had with those people. It was in healing that I started to notice that this mustard seed faith that I had was actually a bigger faith. Was that God was even though I thought he wasn't, that God was me, and that even though my life was challenging and my life was hard, I was thrown so many lucky stones, so many lucky stones that were ripple effects of building me to get me to the destination that I am now, to be doing this podcast. Hello. And you know what I mean, to be living the life that I'm living. Sometimes, like I always say, like when I do some of my check-ins, I'm like, I'm overwhelmed by the life that I have. I can't believe that, and that overwhelming feeling comes from the fact that, like, wow, like so many amazing things were happening that I couldn't even see, that I couldn't even witness, because there was piles and piles and piles and piles of shit that I was carrying, that because of those piles I couldn't even see the blessings and the beautiful things and the wonderful things and the good things that were happening to me, for me, to propel me to be the wonderful person that I now see myself to be. And so in a sense, I'm really appreciative to fate. I'm really grateful to Christianity, even in my critiques, even in my conflicts with it sometimes. I'm really grateful to it, because as a faith, as a religion I was born into, I can see how much it has served me, how much it has connected me with people, how much it's brought so much amazing and wonderful things in my life, how it has even though I call it motivational speaking, no, how those motivational preaching were literally some of the things that were holding me down and keeping me going. I'm my first, I'm my most challenging, I'm my downright most bottomest of the bottom, where I could be gone right now. I literally could not be doing this, or I couldn't be alive right now, you know? And so I'm really, really grateful for faith. I'm really grateful for spirituality, whichever way that you go about it. I am so thankful for it. And I'm just glad that I got the opportunity, and the chance to be able to see how much of a big blessing my faith is to me. And therefore, I now understand truly how happy it is to be a Christian woman, to body what I believe and what I think being a Christian woman is to me, and how I'm going to propel it for myself to move forward and to go in the future. In a sense, and also realizing that, like, at the end of the day, the opinions of others of me in terms of how I practice my faith, how I go about my faith, and so much and so forth, really, I don't care. I just don't care. Because at the end of the day, I see it as when I meet God, if I die and there is an afterlife, of course, and I do meet God, I'm able to have a conversation with me. I truly believe that, like, sorry, as Christian, we always say that God is all knowing, all seeing, all powerful. And I believe that, like, God sees everything, He knows everything. We always say that He sets the path for you. Okay, so there's this scripture that I truly, truly love so much. And whenever I'm like in therapy, me and my therapist like really talk about it. And it's Jeremiah 29:11. It says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope in a future." And I want to end with this particular scripture because it's like God has a plan for me. He's set a table for me. He knows where I'm going. Therefore, He understands all integral things of me. He understands everything about me, every facet of me, my mind, the way I'm thinking, what my intentions are. He knows all of that. And therefore, it's in my confidence in God, knowing who I truly am, that I really do not care about people's opinions of me and my faith and how I practice my faith, or how I choose to practice my faith. It's in my confidence in the relationship I have and my conviction and my centeredness in that I know that, like, okay, however way I practice my faith is my business and God's business, and it's got nothing to do with you per se. So I say this to say that, like, if you are healing and you are practicing a faith and you feel judged, you feel lost, or like, oh, I'm not doing it the right way or the perfect way, or you know what I mean, please tune that out. Tune that out and just focus on getting yourself where you need to get yourself to. Focus on getting yourself to a place. Focus in your place of focus on getting yourself to a place of, wellness and comfort and at peace and of trust and of confidence in God and of loving God and of just, amazing wellness and beautifulness in life. I think that that's the focus on that. We as human beings and as part of our behavior are always going to judge, are always going to scrutinize, and are always going to belittle. It's part of our characteristics. It's part of who we are, and that is completely fine. And a lot of us are walking out here being control freaks, and we don't know that we're projecting our control freakiness on other people, and we do. And so, be wary and be cautious of the people that you're aligning yourself with, like, the relationship that you have. Some are blessings, some are hindrance, some are good for you and are nourishing for you, and some are just curses. You know what I mean? And we don't even see it sometimes, because when you're in a very, very tough place, when you're in a traumatized place, when you're hurt place, you're very blind, you don't see a lot. And just keep being in your faith, keep having confidence in your faith, stay trustful, or stay trusting in yourself, in your journey, in the choices that you're making, and don't be fearful. Don't be fearful of the judgment that you may face, the ridicule, the criticisms that you may end up facing. Because at the end of the day, it's your journey, it's your life, and you have to make it a beautiful one. We're a group of communal people, but at the same time, there's a lot of individuality that we need to exercise and practice whilst we are on this earth. So, I hope this is a good explanation as to my conflict with faith my experience with it. I'll talk about fate a little more because I feel like fate is like so important. I want to cover different types of fates and people's relationship with it and stuff like that, because I feel like it's a really interesting topic, and it's like really fascinating to me because I've had my experience with it, and I wonder what other people's experience of fate and spirituality is like, and I have my thoughts and my opinions as well, because one thing I am not going to be is to be a follower and not make my mind up for myself, but let other people tell me how to make my mind up for in terms of other things. That's something I'm just definitely gonna do. So yeah, I hope this was a good episode. I hope that this was informative, helpful. Please comment if you have any thoughts. If you have anything challenging point of views, I want to hear about it. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation. Because always a conversation. It is my point of view. And I always like to hear about people's point of view. I think it's so fascinating. And if you like this episode, please like a girl, like me. And subscribe. Please follow me on socials. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Blue Sky, even though I do not post on there. I'm on YouTube, Spotify, everywhere. Please, sis, like a bitch. I forgot about it. Sorry, this is a Christian podcast. Should have been saying a bitch. Sorry. um, but like me, and just let me know your thoughts, and also email me at reformingpessimistpodcast@gmail.com. Come on, tell us something. I would love to hear from people. I would like to hear any dilemmas or whatever. If you have any questions for me as you're going through your journey, if you're stuck somewhere, if you have any challenges, reach out to sis. I will respond to you. I'm very lazy in responses, but I will respond to you at some point. And I hope you have a great, fantastic week, day, wherever you are, whatever time that you're listening. And I can't wait to be back to give you some more thoughts of what Abanga Lydia think. I love you all so much. I might end with this snippet of me singing to a song that I love so much. Like, my life has transformed so much over the last year, and this song has been my anthem, my gospel anthem. It's a Ghanaian song, so I might put the end. If I don't put that at the end, well, but I might put that at the end. And if I do, enjoy. Love you all. Bye. Da, 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 da. Oh, oh, how about you the best you made, and everything is blessed. The wonders of your grace. You took my sin, my guilt, my shame, and you gave me your name. We go sing hallelujah. I'd rather you than you, babe. Voice is not there, guys. Bosheno, abemo. I got my victory in you. We're coming home to Mitsuru. Bosheno, abemo. I got my victory in you. We're coming home to Mitsuru. And you gave me your name. We go sing alley, eh. Osheno, abemo. I got my victory in you. Oh, come here, Timmy Suro. Osheno, abemo. I got my victory in you. Oh, come here, Timmy Suro. One, not one, dick, one, I told my. What's the seven? It's a heavy hey. We're coming home to me, sorrow. What now? What did what I told? Hey, here we go. We're coming home to me, sorrow. Bonjame, come on, namin tenya bias.
Raggedy. 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 raggedy.
So raggedy.